Welcome to another episode of Longer Laterals, where America's energy industry meets Washington. Today we're turning tables, and Washington is meeting America's energy industry. I'm here today with Chairman Bruce Westerman, who leads the House Natural Resources Committee and represents Arkansas's 4th District. Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for being with us today.
And so glad to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the discussion.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Well, first, let's talk a little bit about your history. So you are a registered forester, the only one in Congress. You're an engineer, and you lead the Natural Resources Committee. So tell us a little bit about how your background comes into play when you think about energy policy and preserving America's natural resources.
Well, I often joke with people that I've got the two worst educational backgrounds to serve in Congress, being an undergraduate degree in engineering, and I'm a professional engineer, licensed engineer, and engineers think with logic and reason.
Indeed.
Then I've got a graduate degree in forestry, and foresters look at long-term horizons. So, logic and reason and long-term horizons, that doesn't usually seem to be desired traits in D.C., but it's been beneficial to me, and it's given me an opportunity to work on things like energy, where engineering and physical science is very important in understanding that, and also on taking care of the resources that we've got, which forestry is kind of the original, I guess agriculture and forestry are the original environmentalists.
Absolutely.
But having a more of a pragmatic approach to being good stewards of the environment, and the educational background has actually been quite helpful in those areas.
Yeah. So your committee has been talking a lot about permitting reform this Congress. This is something you've actually been working on for many years. And you are the sponsor of a bill called the SPEED Act. Can you tell us a little bit about what that bill is?
Yeah, going back to my background, when I was doing engineering work, which I did for almost 25 years in the private sector, I dealt with a lot of permits. So I've been on the other side of it, trying to figure out how to wade through the morass of permits and, rolling my eyes at this is ridiculous, that it's accomplishing nothing. It's just checking the boxes, slowing the project down. And then I got to Congress and got a chance to work on the other side of it to hopefully make that better so that the country can start building things again and doing it quicker and less cost, which will translate into more jobs, will translate into a growing economy, and actually helps the federal deficit. There's all kinds of benefits if we get our permitting and regulatory house in order, and we can do that and still be excellent stewards of the environment. The actual processes that we've got right now, which are always seem to be geared to no, or you're going to wait forever before you find out, and it creates a lot of uncertainty, and that hurts with investments, and it actually hurts the economics of the investment once it's made because of the extra cost and the long timelines and the time it takes to actually start generating cash flow from when you commit the capital on a project. So all that said, we want to make permitting faster. We want to keep the environmental protections in place. And what we've got right now is neither helping the economy or the environment.
Yep.
And some people have a hard time understanding that you can have a healthy environment and a strong economy at the same time. They actually go hand in hand. And a civilized society is one that recognizes that and works towards both goals.
Absolutely.
Teddy Roosevelt said that a nation behaves well if it is good stewards of its resources and leaves them unimpaired and hindered for future generations. I may have messed that up a little bit, but that's the gist of it, that if you're a society that's behaving properly, you're protecting your resources and you're leaving them in better shape for the next generation coming along. That doesn't mean you can't use those resources.
Right.
And if you look at where the best environmental guidelines are in the world, it's where you've got the strongest economies.
Interesting. So your bill focuses on NEPA, which is a statute that is 5 decades old. It was built for a different era. I think it was well intended, but has really evolved over time to be weaponized and is not suited for what we need to build a modern energy infrastructure. So I think what you said is so critical that, maintaining high environmental standards is essential, and it's not something that anyone wants to water down. But tell us a little bit about what NEPA was originally intended to do, what it is actually doing today, and how you all are proposing to reform that statute.
All right. So NEPA is the acronym for the National Environmental Policy Act, and it was put in place late 60s, early 70s to protect our air and our water. Then we get the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, you get the Endangered Species Act. You get all these statutes that get analyzed under the National Environmental Policy Act, and that's where your real environmental protections are. Yeah. NEPA is simply a process. It was set up by Congress to say you've got to analyze these things. And it grew into a monster over time. Fortunately, the Supreme Court recently said in the 7 counties decision, explicitly said NEPA is a process. It cannot dictate outcomes. Well, NEPA had been used to dictate outcomes. I should have brought the chart in here, but we've diagrammed the NEPA process on a flow chart, and you probably couldn't get it in the frame. It's just this massive spider web of arrows and boxes and decision points. And as a result of that, the process to evaluate the environmental impact averages 4.7 years. That's average. If you're talking about a mine, you measure that in decades. We've got mines that have been 20 and 30 years through the permitting process and still no answer on will they get a permit. And then it's set up where even after you get your permit, which in the NEPA process is called a record of decision, there's a statute that gives you 6 years for what's called judicial review. So you can get your permit, start spending your money, and all of a sudden, under judicial review, somebody files suit in an Article 3 court, and a judge says, here's an injunction. Stop your project. And think about, there's instances of billions of dollars. The Keystone Pipeline, billions of dollars spent. There's not been one drop of oil flow through the Keystone Pipeline because it was never finished. The Resolution copper mine in Arizona, a couple $1 billion spent, nothing's happening. One of the largest deposits of copper in the U.S., they went through the whole permitting process, got the record of decision, invested capital, and a court said, technical foul, stop. And that's a wet blanket to investments. And if we want to build stuff in our country again, if we want to be self-sufficient for things like rare earths and critical minerals, if we want to have energy dominance, if we want to have good infrastructure, we have got to change the NEPA process, and that's what the SPEED Act does.
So I really like how you have been highlighting the time that it takes to build some of these bigger energy projects, because to your point, the permit process takes longer than a single administration. And so while we've seen really great enthusiasm and support from the Trump administration, what you're seeking to do through the SPEED Act, through legislative reforms, is to provide durability that lasts beyond election cycles. Is that correct?
We've got to stop the ping pong match.
Exactly.
It's like an administration changes from Democrat to Republican, and the executive orders just all go one way, then they all go another way.
Yep.
And if it takes 4.7 years to get a permit, that's one term of a president. So these projects go longer than presidential terms, and you have to have that certainty. There's a potential mine up in northern Minnesota, the Twin Metals copper mine. It's one of these is 20 and 30 years 20 to 30 years in the permitting process. It started with the Obama administration pulling the lease. First Trump administration put the lease back in place. Biden administration pulled the lease. Hundreds of millions of dollars being spent just on the permitting. And what's up there? Copper, nickel, cobalt, platinum, palladium, all the things that we need to grow the economy. So where are we buying all that now? We're buying it from China. We used to produce 3 times more copper than China, and now they're producing 10 times more copper than us. We've got 2 copper smelters. They've got over 50. That was in 1995. We produced 3 times more copper than they did. And the part that people miss is the public infrastructure. Yeah. I mean, think about energy is critical. It's like foundational to having an economy. But the NEPA process slows down building roads and bridges. It adds to the cost. Airports, railroads, navigable waterways, seaports, all of those things have to go through a NEPA process. How long has it been since we built a refinery in the United States?
Decades, I think.
Yeah. And we're importing the crude oil that we refine in our refineries because it's a heavy crude, which our refineries were built for, and we're exporting our light sweet crude because we don't have the refineries to process it. And all of this goes back to permitting in NEPA.
Yep. And China is not letting outdated environmental statutes hold it back from building the energy infrastructure it needs. I think its power capacity is now twice that of the United States because they have been just building out
that's embarrassing
at an eye-popping
We
rate.
should be embarrassed
Yeah.
that we've allowed China to double us up on energy production. Yeah. And they control, they produce 70% of the rare earths and critical minerals and process 90% of them. They've got a stranglehold on the world on these critical minerals. Both of those stats came from a Wall Street Journal article just recently. But the other thing is this new technology with data centers and AI, and our demand for electricity is going through the roof. Mm-hmm. So we cannot produce enough electricity right now. And to put this in perspective, China's building 100 to 120 gigawatts of coal power plants every year. The last coal-powered plant built in the United States was in my district in 2010. It was 650 megawatts. So do the math on that. What China's building every year is one of those plants every couple of days is coming online. It's almost hard to fathom it. But when you talk to folks in the digital world and they tell you how much energy they need for these data centers, you understand why China is overbuilding capacity so that they will have it to turn the computers on when they get to the next level of AI. Yep. And that is a national security threat.
It's a national security threat, and it also is a pocketbook question because it's going to really risk the reliability and affordability of power for the average American family, too.
Right. Unfortunately, we've got enough natural gas that we can generate a lot of electricity. Yep. And you would think we could do that quickly, but you've got supply chain issues. There's limited manufacturers on gas turbines and generators and all the transmission and distribution equipment. And we're in a tough situation. If we've got the gas, we need more pipelines, we need more transmission lines, we need more materials, but the supply chain on these turbine generators is critical. And the last I checked, if you wanted to order one now, the deliveries are like 7 years away. Yeah. So we've got to be focusing on nuclear. This administration is taking a real strong stance on coal, saying we're not going to close any more coal plants. But it needs to be all hands on deck if we want to meet the energy demands.
Yep. Well, we know America's natural gas producers are ready, stand ready, and we're going to be certainly the baseload fuel for years to come. But agree, like it's not going to be just natural gas. We're going to need all sources of energy to meet that growing demand.
We could add like 12 gigawatts of power on existing Corps of Engineer dams. We had a lot of dams built that they didn't put the turbines and generators on. But going through the environmental process to put a new turbine generator, even on an existing dam, if you tried to build a new dam, I mean, the trend right now is we're tearing dams out.
Yeah.
With all of this going on, we're closing coal plants, we're tearing hydroelectric plants down. You cannot make an argument on carbon and hydropower. It's the cleanest power you can get. There's absolutely no carbon emissions.
Yeah.
But they use the Endangered Species Act, Marine Mammal Protection Act. That's how they attacked the hydro plants. But the adults have to come to the table and say, look, we have to have energy.
Yeah.
If we don't have energy, we lose. But there's no way around that.
Yeah.
And again, an all of the above approach.
Yeah. So one more question about the SPEED Act. So you mentioned 7 County, which I think is kind of a game changer in the permitting reform discussion. It was a unanimous Supreme Court decision, which again was really, really meaningful. Talk about 7 County, what it meant for permitting reform, and how that's serving as the basis for reforming some of this litigation abuse we've seen around NEPA.
Well, a federal court had said this before, that NEPA is a process. But when the Supreme Court, in a unanimous decision, says NEPA is a process, we can either fix it legislatively, or we're going to see the courts just overflowing with lawsuits. Because NEPA has been abused, it's imperative that Congress go in and fix the statute to match what the Supreme Court has said about NEPA. And that's basically what we're doing. We're codifying that in the SPEED Act, along with a lot of other things. But if you think of as NEPA as the process, then you got your underlying statutes like Clean Air, Clean Water, ESA, MMPA, all of those, the Historic Preservation Act, or some that are in the Resources Committee. There needs to be changes made to those as well, because they're all pretty much just as old as NEPA. But if you have a process that works, even with the underlying statutes that need tweaked, you can get through things a lot quicker. And I think we could see in the SPEED Act, which deals strictly with NEPA, we could see some of the other committees of jurisdiction offer tweaks to some of the other underlying statutes that go into a large permitting bill.
That's great. I know one of the complications around permitting has been it's a multi-jurisdictional issue. And so the fact that y'all are working together, I think, is a really positive sign.
And it's got to be bipartisan, because we have to have 60 votes in the Senate. But everybody's realizing, both sides of the aisle, both ends of the Capitol, the administration, certainly the stakeholders out across the country who deal with the permitting morass, are realizing we've got to do something different.
And I think that's something I hear that surprises people, that given what's been going on with the government shutdown and some of the dysfunction that they see every day in Congress, that there are constructive bipartisan conversations going on around permit reform. So can you validate that? Can you put some color around that?
Yeah, I spent a lot of time during the recent shutdown meeting with other members and working through issues on the SPEED Act. It actually gave me more time to sit down with staff and go through line by line in the text. And we have all this feedback coming in from other members, both Republican and Democrat, from the administration, from outside groups who deal with this every day. And, we get down to the point, is this the right word, or should this be? Yeah. So it's been good from that standpoint. We did lose a lot of time. We probably would have already had the SPEED Act passed out of the committee for sure, had we not had the shutdown. Kind of a roadmap that we use for the SPEED Act is something called the Fix Our Forest Act. So I'll put my forestry hat back on. The same problem we have with producing energy, we have with managing our federal lands. So we've seen these devastating forest fires. It's not because we don't have federal land managers that don't know how to take care of the forest. They can't do their job. They work on these forest management plans for years, which involves the NEPA process. They try to implement their forest management plan. Somebody sues them, and the forest management never gets done. So you get all this buildup of fuels, lightning strikes, and we've seen these devastating wildfires. The thing that I was able to get my my friends across the aisle first really interested in rural forest NEPA reform was the fact that we lost 20% of the giant sequoias that grow on the planet in 2 years. They only grow in about 70 distinct groves on the eastern slope of the Sierra Nevadas above like 4,500 feet. It's like God said, sequoias you can grow here, and it's almost like there's a line around.
Wow.
It's really a unique forestry thing. And when I was in forestry school, we didn't really think you could kill a sequoia with fire. Some of them have bark that's 2 feet thick. But because of bad policy and then challenges under NEPA, we totally did a hands-off approach to management, except if a fire started, we would put the fire out.
Okay.
So we threw the science out with the bathwater, and nature caught up to us. So we had these trees that normally would get taken out by low-intensity fire that for 150 years just kept growing slowly under in the understory of the giant sequoias. Created a ladder fuel, so the fire comes along, it runs up the white fir tree, gets in the crown of the sequoia, and wiped out whole groves of sequoia trees.
Interesting.
And that is a management decision. We said we're going to be hands-off, but saying hands-off in nature is a management decision because nature always changes. So I went down the rat hole on forestry, which it gets me really excited. But I was able to show like peer-reviewed research papers to my friend Scott Peters. I went on a Codell with him and had him trapped on an airplane for hours.
Nice.
And he got it. And we started working on the Fix Our Forest Act, passed it about a year ago with good bipartisan support, and then we had the horrible fires in Los Angeles in January of this year.
Yeah.
Brought it back up, and we had enough Democrat votes on the Fix Our Forest Act that it could have passed on suspension.
Amazing.
Like means a 2/3 vote in the House. It's over in the Senate right now. It's passed out of the Senate Ag Committee, and we believe it has the votes to pass out of the Senate. It's got a lot of the same NEPA reforms specifically for forestry that we're working on the Speed Act.
So that's the model.
That's the model. And a lot of people have already voted for these reforms in the Fix Our Forest Act.
Well, that's a testament to you that you've been able to sort of bridge those gaps.
I say if we can't agree on trees, I don't know what we can agree on. There's like nothing's better for the environment than a healthy forest. You get clean air, clean water, wildlife habitat.
We can all agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay, couple last fun questions. So to our listeners, what would surprise them the most about your day-to-day job that they might not know?
That's a great question, Anne. So I played football in college.
Okay.
And
at Arkansas?
I was a Razorback.
Razorback?
I was on the team for 4 years. Playing came at a premium, but for a boy growing up in Arkansas to run out on the field with the fight song playing, that's like, you can't describe that to people.
That's awesome.
And I've often told people that ask me what it's like being in Congress, I say, it's kind of like playing football for the Razorbacks. You could see it.
Yeah.
You saw everything that was happening, but being there doing it is a whole different experience.
Yeah.
And it's hard to really explain to people what it's like serving in Congress.
Yeah.
Especially with cell phones. You're like a doctor always on call.
Yeah. Yeah.
I grew up where we had rotary dial telephones, and my parents thought it was rude if you called somebody or they called you after 7 p.m. at night. I'll get text messages at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's just constant. And holidays, there's no break from it. But it's something where you can feel like you're doing something good for the future and kind of taking on Roosevelt's challenge to leave the world in a better place than you found it.
Love that. I was told to ask you about your gavel. You're chairman, so I'm not surprised to see a gavel, but I was told there was something unique about this particular gavel.
Well, this gavel was given to me by Ducks Unlimited Unlimited.
Okay.
And they told me that I may be the only person that hasn't been a former president of Ducks Unlimited to get one of these gavels. And that once you become chairman, people are giving you gavel gifts. But this is maybe the most unique gavel I've ever seen. But I am a duck hunter. I love to duck hunt. If you're from Arkansas, you just about have to do that. But not only is it a gavel, it's you could take it duck hunting with you and call a duck.
That's amazing. Have you ever taken it hunting?
No,
Not
it's
yet.
too nice to take hunting. I would probably drop it in the water and lose it if I took it to get duck hunting.
Amazing. Well, thank you for this conversation. It's been a real pleasure. Best of luck on next steps with the Speed Act. We're very supportive and appreciate all of your efforts on that bill and all of your other efforts related to American energy. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Anne. It's been so good to visit with you, and I hope everybody will get involved in the Speed Act because it does affect all parts of our economy.
It does.
And we've got one of the largest coalitions. I tell people the only coalition that could possibly be larger as far as who gets affected by DC policy would be taxes. Like everybody gets affected by taxes. But the Speed Act affects so many people in so many different ways.
Yeah.
And can be the foundation for a very bright future for our country going forward.
Absolutely. It's quite a legacy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.